I'll have a beer if you're making one. I'll have a beer.
That's that. Yeah. Is it? Okay. All right. That's it. Good evening, councillors. Welcome to this meeting of the August full council meeting. We've got some apologies. We've got apologies from Neil Butterworth, Mark Young, Emma Cornish. That's it, I think. Are we happy to accept? Oh, yes.
Pat Howarth.
And Pat Howarth, thank you. Are we happy to accept those members? Yes, thank you. Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Is there any issues or addition, or can we pass these? Yes, David.
I just had two things that aren't on the agenda for tonight that we could have an update at some point, which is number 7 and number 12.
Sorry, I'm just giving you my copy of the minutes. Can you just ask which they were specifically?
Number 7 was Town Hall.
Yeah, certainly. The town hall is underway. The wall's been stripped, the ceiling's out, and the electrics are made safe, and the radiators are done. So they're supposed to be bringing in the drying equipment within the next week. Scaffolding is looking about a 3 to 4 week lean on it, but we have been up and investigated the issue, and it's a pointing issue on the 2 chimney breasts in the area. So we are aware now what the issue is and moving forward. Queen's Green canopy, I'm waiting to hear back on.
Is that okay? Are we happy to pass those now? Can someone propose the minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Clamp. And thank you, Kevin. You're the seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 4 is declaration of interest. Do we have any declaration of interest?
Am I on now? Yeah. I work for the applicant associated with planning application 21/0626/VAR.
Thank you. Item 5 is public forum. I understand that we've got a Miss S. Hunt that's attending virtually, and she wants to speak on item 16, planning application number 2. So I'll invite Ms. Hunt to tell us what she wants to tell us. Okay?
Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Susan, can you
Hello?
hear us?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me okay?
Why can't we hear? Apologies, we did have this working earlier.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Try now.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
It turned itself off. It's always recording. All right. Test. Try now.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Apologies, council.
I can hear you.
discussing this item now? Or
No, we're just
allowing this
listening.
person to speak?
Sue, could you try
Can-
speaking again?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? I can hear you.
Because we did this in different rooms earlier.
I can hear you.
Just keep trying, Sue, because I need to.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear everybody talking in the room. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
No, we've unmuted it.
Hello?
Unless it's her
Hello?
mic that's not working because it's picking up ours.
My mic's working. It's working on my side.
Microphone's picking it up.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah. I think we're
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Is me trying to find out whether it's the settings at her side. I do apologise. Right, so she can hear us, but we can't hear hers, which means her mic isn't working. Do apologise? She might be able to write one.
Well, why don't we just call her up and put her on speaker?
I don't have a telephone.
Got my phone number?
Or live on social media. I use my mic all day, it's working. I can grab my mobile.
I'll have to put her on now.
Don't really want that live on. Bear with us, everyone. Let's do this again. I'm not putting it in the She put the. She's giving me a different mobile number. That's why. Apologies. I'm not available at the moment, but if you'd like to leave out your name and number, I'll get back to you. Not available at the moment, but if
What's going on with these?
Come here, we've got a chair. Let's have a different on the agenda, so we made it here. Oh my God.
Bear with me. Do you want to type in my work You don't know my work phone. Will you go grab my work phone off the desk? Is it on your? It's on my desk, right? I'm not giving out my personal number. Oh no. Try once more, just on the off chance.
But does she know it?
Yes, she's got.
Why don't she turn it on then? Well, I propose that we move on and see if we can catch up later.
Pardon?
No, those have been you.
I am, but that's my personal phone. So Gina's just going to grab my work one because I don't want to use my phone. Sorry. We ran this in several rooms earlier. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
She might be getting the message now.
Hello, Sue speaking.
Hi, Sue. It's from Town Council. Some reason we couldn't hear yours.
Oh, it's when she went to council computing, but sometimes it's the thing.
Okay.
It's not coming through, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Sue.
Yeah,
my
concern is about the petrol station operating overall is the traffic. Traffic, when everywhere was told, traffic was coming down Greenfield Road, through where it was in Nature Reserve, and it was horrendous, because it's a very small lane, and a lot of cars were coming down. And my concern is from where this petrol station is supposed to be built, the traffic is going to be horrendous, coming from Boundary Hill all the way across. And I'm very concerned about the pedestrians, the children and the ones walking to the Nature Reserve down that lane and the cyclists. And I don't think the roads are suitable to equip this at all. It's just seems to be that they're taking all the green area away from us and they're just trying to build this monstrosity of a piece of building. And I'm just really concerned about not just the Nature Reserve, but about the local community and everything where the coffee shop and that's going to be built. It's going to take people away from cold century. You don't want that. That's what my concerns are, and it's just, I don't think it's going to be more and more traffic which can come. The roads are looked after anyway in Pendle. Or like she Council never look after the roads. So this is going to cause absolute turmoil.
Is that what all you wanted to say, Sue?
Yeah, and it's just about, the residents in our area. It's just, we are in trouble. We don't want it. Why did they want to the petrol station? We've got 3 or 4 on the road leading from the petrol station. You've got Nelson, you've got Briarfield, you've got Why do I need another petrol station? Why do we need 4 noise pollution and rubbish? That's my concern with this building. If it's happening, I hope there's going to be that on the landscape.
We won't be the deciding authority, but we can give our views into Pendle Council. And thank you for your input in that, and we'll take it into consideration when we're discussing this planning application. Okay.
Yeah, got to that. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.
So the next item is public finances. Which would be 6A, schedule of payments. Is there anything anyone wants to say about that? Either the payments over £1,000 or anything on the full list? No, members? Thank you. Can I have a proposal then for those?
Very good, Chair. I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. The next one is to receive a summary of the budget spend and commitment about the 30th of August. Yes, please.
Just got one question. It's one of the updates about our rental properties. Whether rental monies are flowing, etc., and all the arrangements we put in place now through the lockdown, pandemic, etc., are yielding some benefits.
Yes, all current rent is coming in. We are still sorting out a few bits of the arrears for COVID, but we're pretty much sure by the end of this month it should be all either paid or established in funds for.
Other than that, is that fine? Can I then have a proposal to accept it? Thank you, David Craig.
Yeah, before you move on, partly in answer to David's question, can I ask Naomi to contact David by phone in the morning? And there is a problem with one of them. And can I ask Naomi to ring David in his capacity as Vice Chair and fill him in with the details of it?
Are you happy to propose them?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I have a second, please? Harold or? All those in favour? Thank you. Item 7 is the memorial benches in the conservation area. Do we have anyone who wants to speak on this? Sarah?
I saw what Rosemary had to say, and I was. I saw what Rosemary had to say, and I was a little surprised. My feeling is that they would still have a deleterious effect in the conservation area, most especially when we had the discussion last time in the sort of woods effect. I think if you're going to have something that's plastic, you should say that it's plastic, as opposed to trying to be something that it's not. And I would definitely say that where we retain the Victorian benches, as we do opposite the town hall, with the serpent bench ends, we absolutely must retain those because they are so redolent of their period within the conservation area. We shouldn't replace those with plastic. I think it would have a horrible effect on Combe, and that is my view.
Anybody else anything to say about those? Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I'll take you and then I'll take Alice. Okay.
Is that all? Yeah. I think I've mentioned before about the planters down on the railway station, where there are 2 planters with a bench in the middle, and they are recycled tyres, and they look pretty smart, I think. They were donated to us by Network Rail. I suppose they had some money. But yeah, all the planters down there, and those planters on the bench are recycled plastic. And I think, I mean, personally, I'm sure you will have a different view, Sarah, but I don't think we can keep forever a Victorian sort of look in the town, because it's not like that. The shop fronts are different than they were 50 years ago, or whatever. They're all colourful, and you know, I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Dorothy. Alice?
I must admit, I do agree with the certain idea of keeping that.
I can't hear you.
I must admit,
I do agree with the serpent in keeping those traditional, but I would go with the black plastic or any of the others, because I think the black would actually merge in with our street furniture better than the brown. I know that certain people may have different ideas, and we may even have got some in stock that are brown. But my view is that it would look better if it was in black in the conservation area. We did talk about quirkiness, a bit imaginative designs for other areas of Colne, and I still think that would be quite fun to find a different type of bench in other areas of Colne and coming across them rather than the black or the brown plastic. A lot of the benches need to be repaired. There is an awful lot, and yeah, that's just my personal opinion on that.
Has anybody else any? Well,
Yeah, I would be surprised if those benches opposite here were Victorian. I suspect they are just about post-war, if not even later than that.
Yeah, I just want to confirm, we're not talking about ripping out all the benches that are there. What we're talking about is if, for example, we had some stolen white walls, they're then replaced with these ones. Obviously, the ones that we can maintain, we will, as long as it is, it sounds like a cost-effective option. If someone's stolen certain legs, they've been stolen, so then it would get replaced with we're not talking about taking them all out and replacing them all suddenly with recycled plastic. It would be a gradual process, but obviously the ones we can maintain, we will. But like I just thought, I should make that one clear.
We've got two issues. We've got three issues. Black plastic benches in conservation area. That's what the agenda says. It's there. It's asking for a certain more Victorian. And then we've got another issue with outside the conservation area with quirky pink with white dots on them.
We should have Ruby Starlight outside the conservation area. That would be on brand. I do think that they are Victorian, those bench ends. They're very, very redolent of the period. We found some more in the cellar, didn't we, Naomi? You only have to look at the casting. If they're not Victorian, then they are very good reproduction of that casting. You find it in other towns, those certain bench ends.
Well, we've got the recommendation in the agenda, but Sarah, you are really wanting to put another amendment.
Well, I'm afraid I'm terribly hardline. I really don't like these plastic benches in the conservation area. The benches that Dorothy was talking of at the station, that's not in the conservation area. So I wouldn't vote for replacement. I think it would be a crying shame for something to have lasted this long and then be replaced because of a rotten slat. And I actually feel if our Victorian benches are weighed in or stolen, then we should be making an insurance claim of like for like, because we are definitely losing some of the essence of the town if they disappear.
Oh, David, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. If you want an approximate date for the surplus benches, they were all bought after the Colne Borough Council bought Alkin Court Farm in 1929. Whether they were new when you got them or not, I can't swear on that, but I would assume they were. And I would assume they were probably made at WB White's down road on Borough Road.
Obviously, you know that.
Well, we've got the recommendation, David.
I was just going to say that outside the conservation area, the town council and the Borough Club have put 6 of these plastic tables in within the last month, and I've been very, very surprised at how good and how much they actually look because I aren't a believer or wasn't a believer in them, but they are very strong, very good, and you put 3 men to lift the lid, so they're not going to run with them very quickly either. And I was very surprised. Well, they're there for people to see. There's 3 next to the children's play area and 3 next to the cafe.
But I think we
Just to get it clear, we're talking of memorial benches. No one's talking about ripping out all the existing benches. This is if somebody comes along and says, I would like an ice bench to commemorate my great auntie Betty. And I'd like a bench put outside the crowd because she used to drink in there like a fish. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to then take a bench away. It may even be that there are benches there that we could just put a liquor paint on and whatever the plaques are now made of. They're not made of, can't remember, some plastic something it said in the report last time. So, you know, let's get away from the idea that we're about to rip all these benches out and put the ones in. We agreed last time that we have the memorial bench policy outside the conservation area. The only question that was left was whether the conservation officer thought this was a good idea or not. And we've asked the question and got an answer back. So I don't see what we're spending so much time on.
Thank you. Well, we've got the recommendation. I'll put that to a vote now. So all in favour of having the black plastic benches in the conservation area and memorial benches. And we will vote please now. All those against? Thank you. Can we put on the next agenda an issue about benches outside the conservation? That was on the the wooden one.
The recycled plastic ones,
Did we say what colour they have to be?
they were brown because we've actually done 3 replacements. That's
Alice, yes?
Could we have a look at that again, please, and just discuss it? Because we might, well, it might be in 5 years' time. We can't surely have made that decision for eternity, that they would just be brown. So I'd like that, if possible, to be re-looked at, if that's.
Well, we can put it on an agenda in the future. 6 months. Kevin?
I trust that the new benches security mark.
the security mark.
Yes.
What with what?
Smart water, is it smart
Smart
water?
water.
Smart water.
So if you do get taken, take fine.
Okay. I'll ensure that it's put on an agenda in the future. Item 8, it's the proposed working group for the Great British Rhythm and Blues Festival. So we've got, can I ask, we're looking for 8 members, that's what we have. So can I ask who would like to serve on this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 6. I've got 7.
Sorry.
So that's Howard, Alex, Brian, Kenny, Sarah, with David, for example.
We didn't, but Mark often is on it,
It
isn't
is, yeah. Yeah.
Mark, Dot, Kevin, Sarah, Mary, Howard, and Brian.
And Alex.
And Alex. That's right.
Okay. And we're looking for a chairman.
of this.
Can I move that be you, Chair?
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? No? I think that means I'll be elected as chairman. Yes, we're looking for a vice chairman now. Don't be shy. Oh, Alice.
Councillor Alice now.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Don't second that for that. I'll second that.
All those in favour? Anybody else wants to put them in forward for vice chair? No? Thank you. The next item is peat-free compost.
Yeah, but you missed one out before.
Oh, yeah, return to preference, sorry. Sorry.
May I ask, so a co-op team's dealt with on the first meeting?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Sarah. Right, in terms of reference, has anybody got anything to say about the issues? I think David tried to mention something, did you? No?
I think, Chair, there are two things. In paragraph 1, it says that the annual council should appoint it, and then in 3, it says that itself should appoint the chair and vice chair. So I think 1 on aims and objectives needs taking out. And in membership, it composed of 8 voting members of council, because co-optees, etc., can't vote.
Yeah.
So with that amendment, on
So, yes.
In the membership, part C, co-opted members, we seem to be saying that we can't have anybody who has a financial interest in the festival.
So does that mean that we don't want any of the people that run the pubs and the clubs and whatever as you know, interested stakeholders? They're not allowed to take part. Sounds as though they're experts, really, and we often say that we don't really know about things sometimes.
Yeah, so it is that they can't be co-opted onto it because they do have an individual financial interest. You could have someone co-opted, for example, your bid manager, who therefore will represent all the businesses. We do arrange separate meetings for the businesses to come and attend that are not part of the working group meetings, so that they have their chance to speak. And it means it's fair that they're not, say, pushing one particular business over another. Because we've had it before where one business wants one thing, let's say one end of town, and another is very adamant that that's not right for the festival. And therefore, the working group is council-based one and it benefits the council running it. So that's why we keep it separate.
It sounds like it introduces too many meetings, reduces the scope for health debate amongst the working group.
It has always been done that way to keep it so that it isn't anyone with financial interest, so that they can't say, well, the council is supporting an individual private concern. The other reason, the other thought behind it is that the council don't run the events actually benefit the town, not a statutory requirement. That is actually a borough council function. It is run for the residents, and therefore keeping financial, other businesses with financial interests separate keeps that segregation for it.
Okay, well, we've got a recommendation that we accept the terms of reference with the amendments mentioned by Councillor Thomas. Is everybody happy to accept those? Yeah? And we vote. Thank you. We now on peat-free compost. So we've received a recommendation from the report.
provided, yes.
I think this is an excellent report authored by Gina, and I think we should follow this recommendation. It's a pragmatic and eco-response without involving an awful lot of extra work and expense and moving in the right direction.
Would you be prepared to support that one? Yes. Have we got a seconder here? Yes, Kevin. So all those in favour?
Sorry, can I just see what we're actually saying, because there was two arguments about whether we were going to just go peat-free completely, or we're just going to gradually bring in the peat. I brought this up because when I went into the Coney Bloom garage, there were 10 compost bags that were obviously not peat-free. And as a Coney member, I was just thinking, I don't want to use the compost that's there and ask for it to be returned and get peat-free. So I'm very happy that we get peat-free now. We don't obviously take everything out and put on peat-free compost in all our shops now, because obviously that's all there, which is top up. However, the peat that is in the Coney Bloom garage, I personally wouldn't want the council to be seen using that now, and whether that could be taken that. It would be, yeah.
If it wasn't used, it would be wasted. I believe the policy, the report was saying that it's a gradual thing, so anything we've got, we use, and any more purchase and going forward is peat-free. Because I wouldn't want it to be wasted.
I just was wondering whether to return it to wherever we got it would be like and say whoever's selling it, give a message that the council doesn't actually want them to sell this. But that's my view.
Chair, sorry. How much is it about?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but I have a feeling around 20 or 50 litres bag, but not a lot there. But it will be used within probably the next 6 months when the winter plants and stuff.
Okay. But it's not going to be a great amount, is it? Wasted. Yeah, right. Well, the recommendation is to use what we've got and then get new, but I've got Pickett, I've got Brian and then Liz. Right.
It's such an issue, I'll buy the peat at the price that you paid for it, not give that. And you can get it free.
David.
I wasn't going to get involved in this because the actual report, for me, is the right way to do it. But you've got to remember, apart from Coney Bloom, there are ourselves and one or two other people that do plants. And there's no way at this moment in time that any of my, well, some of my plants are peat-free. But now we've made this rule, I will only buy peat-free compost. But I've obviously got supplies and everything, and because of what was on the recommendation, I just intend any new compost that I buy to be peat-free. And then all your plants that go in via me will eventually become peat-free compost. But trying to go 100%, I don't think it's the right way, because you've got the stock, use it. It's going to get used by somebody. You know, we could use it. Same as Brian, if you don't want it, you know, we get it off your hands. There's no doubt whatsoever at price. It's got to be used, it's there.
Liz.
I just assumed that discussions about wasting it were on the basis that it would be a crime having taken the peat out of the ground to throw it away. I think the money is irrelevant. I think we have to use it because we've done the damage, so we might as well make use of it. I think Sarah's proposed the recommendation and Kevin seconded it.
All those in favour of using what we've got and then going through to Pete through. Okay. Thank you. Item 11 is social media. To consider the request of Contact House to special Instagram grant for promoting the council's activity. Anyone want to speak on this? What the recommendation is, is that all right? Are you supporting that, Sarah? Can I have a second somewhere, please? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. The next one is asset transfer. Consider what assets the town council would like to focus on, or should Pendlebury Council approach the town council about future transfer? Anybody want to think about this? Yes, Harry?
Chair, as I understand it, there is a meeting arranged right in the middle of Town Clerk's holidays, and she's kindly agreed to cycle back from sunny wherever for that meeting on, I think, the 1st of September. I think the time to look at this to see what they are proposing. Certainly, I don't think we should be looking at taking on anything that is a statutory duty for Pendle Council, because that could lead to all sorts of problems in future, particularly if we end up with a unitary Pennine authority or unitary Lancashire or goodness knows what appear in future. And that may mean that we get stuck forever and a day with something that we don't know what the future cost will be. But I think until Pendle have put their cards on the table, we're sort of looking in the dark a bit. So I think the time is the meeting in September when we come back with the list of from Pendle of what they want to get rid of. And then we can decide whether we're interested, not interested, we can touch it with the proverbial 10-foot barge pole, and until we know what the proposals are, I think we are guessing in the dark.
Thank you. David Coburn-Price.
Yes, I think one point to make out of it, the meeting is on Teams. When you want to stay away somewhere and just dial in, that's another option. But no, we decided because of the number of parish and town councils involved and the number of people, that it wasn't going to be practical to have a physical meeting, so it was going to be a Teams meeting. So yes, it is at 4 o'clock on the 1st of September. In terms of choices, I think it's all about choices. There must be things that potentially we want to have and can proactively think we want to have it. Usual caveats, as Howard pointed out, of course, in terms of what they cost to run, how they run at the moment, what kind of things are involved. But obviously, Cone has done a lot in the past to take things on. Now, the last round of things when it was taken on, it was when Councillor Greaves and Philip Moosville basically imposed, when Sarah was the chairman of the council, to say, well, if you don't take these things, we're going to shut them down, dispose of them, close them, mothball them, get rid of them, etc. And things like playgrounds, parks, town hall, etc. were amongst those things. So Cone has been a bit of a leader, and we did do a bit of compare and contrast at the last FES meeting, where we said that some of the other councils really don't have much of an appetite for it. And one of the big reasons, of course, is that their finances, their financial structure is nowhere near as well organised as this council. So this council is more in charge of its own destiny than any other council. So therefore, being able to say, well, car parks, for example, or the market, the movie, the leisure centre, all those sorts of things are things which obviously are at a risk of being closed or having charges imposed on them. If we want to have free parking, do we have to control the car park? Yeah, we probably do in the future. You know, the Pendle Borough Council budget, and I'm on the budget working group for my sins, has a lot of challenges, and the budget doesn't balance, and that's why the exercise is there. In terms of one platform is, are there things which are not required mandatory statutory duties by the borough council that are sort of nice to have, nice to administer, they can change the way they rule things, cemeteries and all on, and all that list. If we want to take control of these things, we should start thinking now about the ones we want, and then think about, do we want to start thinking about how much they may cost, how important they are, prioritise them, rather than having just basically take it or leave it. And if you don't do that, we'll knock it down, build houses, we'll shut it down, we'll close this, we'll stop that. And that's the sort of proactivity that I think we should try and have.
Yes, David.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with quite a bit of what David said, because we did, like he says, we did have a discussion about this at FES. But I've also got one or two other feelings about it as well. And I'm not trying to undo what David just said, because as I've said, I do agree with most of it. But in the past, we have taken other things on of Pendle Borough Council, and I possibly shouldn't say this because it is being recorded and possibly Philip could listen to it. But here goes. In the past, we have taken certain things on, and a good example is the allotments, which was the very first thing we ever took on. And the agreement was at the time that they would hand over to us, at the time, the freehold of all the allotment land. Now, before I make my next comment, Chairman, can I ask our clerk, has that happened yet? Has the land been signed over to us with the freehold?
No, I am chasing them every about 3 weeks.
Well, to be honest, Chairman, I'm getting sick and fed up of Pendle and their transfers. And before we even contemplate taking anything else off them, at this meeting in September, I think we need to be saying to them, either you get that sorted and finish with, done and dusted, the land transferred, or we won't even talk to you about transferring anything. And we should have been doing this a few years ago, but we haven't done it. And we've got to give them the hard line, and we've got to do it. And there are other things. This town hall, we weren't given all the exact details of what was right with it and what was wrong with it at the time, because we know up to now we've spent a lot of money on it, and we know there is a lot more money to spend on it, and it's into hundreds of thousands we need to spend on it. And they need to come clean with us, and they need to deal with us fairly, and they need to, when they say they'll transfer something, they need to transfer it and not do half a job. And I think we need to give them the hard word and say, if you want to lumber anything else off onto us, we want it sorting out what we've already done a deal with in the past. And I'll say no more about it until the meeting in September, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, David.
I completely agree with David, having been involved in the tortuous negotiations for the Pendle Heritage Centre. And I know what it is with the allotments, and it absolutely should be one of our opening points. My two penneth in terms of sort of protecting the assets of the town is obviously to make sure that while not all the towns have the same things in, that there is a level playing field so that no largesse is offered to one town over another town. That is also completely critical. When I was chairman of this council, so years ago now, we did a sort of big brainstorming thing, and Mary's nodding at me, on a whiteboard, and we wrote down all the things. And if you remember, the number one thing, when it came right down to it, in terms of, it was odd really, because it didn't look like it was going to be the front runner, but the number one thing then that we all agreed was the free car parking. And certainly earlier on we were talking about unitary, the potential, and none of us know, because nobody knows how this will happen in West Lancashire. But I think it's true to say that if any other council were put in charge of Combs car parks, route 2 would be to make them all chargeable. And that would stop you just popping into Combe for something, and it would have a really deleterious effect on the vibrancy, the footfall, and the businesses within the town. It wouldn't cost us a great deal of money to take on the car parks, and actually I would observe that. I don't care if Philip Nosedale is listening, because I keep writing emails about it, but the car parks in Combe are not well maintained. You only have to do a little bit of light litter picking to find some true horrors in the shrubbery. I will go no further. And I think that we should secure for Combe free car parks if we are offered that opportunity. And the second thing, which would place an asset that is, in a sense, if you read the neighbourhood plan, our raison d'etre, is the market in the market town. Nelson's Market has already gone. The people that run the market in Combe are, in many ways, lovely people. But I know for a fact that the electrics in that building are completely shot, and they are potentially lacking in the entrepreneurial verve that some other towns have in their markets. I would hate to see Combe lose its market simply with a sort of slow falling off of trade. And it is something that can be turned around. Only this week, Burnley have done a series of artisan markets. I looked into this, thought, is this going to be very costly? No, it's a sort of monthly thing. It's an event. I thought, I wonder how much this is costing in Burnley. I got in contact. They'd be very interested in doing Combe. The deal is, the Burnley deal is, that Burnley Council get no money for it, but it costs Burnley Council nothing. So there are ways, I used to read Market Trader News, it's so vibrant to read. There are ways that other towns are attacking their markets, not attacking their markets, but attacking them so that they are successful. And we could learn from that template rather than just continue as we are. Because I fear that our market is under threat from a sort of Mr. Beeching cut, i.e. we haven't invested in it, it's become less popular, let's close it. And that would be an absolute tragedy. I would tie myself to the railings around that little, the bit that goes at night, because I think it would be a terrible, terrible thing for Combe generally. So I think that we've got to be having these thoughts now, so that we're ready to sort of pick up any batons that might be given to us after the 1st of September.
Chair, yes, we're not talking about the market closing. That sounds really negative to me. Sorry, Sarah.
It's happened in Nelson.
Anybody listening to this is, and particular people that work in the market, it is moving on. It's better, much, much better than it was. It's filling up, but the footfall just isn't there. I think the artisan markets are, I've looked at this in Burnley, is a good idea. But there's lots of ideas. The problem with that market is the frontage of it, and it needs, which will never happen, it needs opening up. It's blank, if you will. Nobody knows what's in there. You know, you've got, but people, I personally think markets are, unless you do change them back, the one at Rottenstall is a brilliant example of what they do there, and with the outside bit. And they have some really good events, but it's a different setup, it's a different layout and that. But this is not about closing the market, it's about, you know, what assets we take on. I agree with the car parks. I think they're not very good, are they? They could do with some repairs. That's it.
Well, shall we defer the actual big discussion on the collective meeting on the 1st of September with Penrith Council and see what they come up with, and if representatives and tell them that, you know, we need all, we're not taking on anything unless we're taking it on totally. Okay. Was that what Howard, that what we were
Yes,
proposing?
Chair, one of the things we should be aware of, I mean, forgetting the market, but we've got the leisure centre and the Swing. If that was taken on solely by Cone and Cone ratepayers, what's to stop people from Barnoldswick, Nelson, the parts of Pendle, taking advantage? So I think when we're talking of things of that sort, we have to be a bit more smart, I think is the word, in either all the parish and town councils have a stake in a leisure trust of some sort, or if you, for every pound we charge someone from Nelson to go swimming, we only charge people in Cone 75 pence or more. That's just a back of a bag packet. We've got to be aware that some things are that people are wanting to divest downwards are connected to the whole borough, not just the town. So we've got to be careful. And the thing we don't want to get into as well is we don't charge for parking, but Nelson do. We're just going to have a certain amount of coordination between it all, or else it'll be a bit mild less. We'll have a checkpoint on Burnley Road. As people come in, have you got your swimming togs with you? Well, you're not really swimming in out of them. So we've just got to be careful when talking of these wider proposed takeovers, that we're not taking on something for the whole that is in fact a whole borough-wide take on, and that it's, there are lots of pitfalls to come in it. And just to make one political point, we're in this situation because of the present government's cutting money to local government. And it's not, even the county, the last county council was saying that with the man we don't mention in charge of it.
Councillor Driver.
I'm not going to mention
it. Well, we've had a good discussion. We know what, we seem to have lots of experts here who hopefully will be able to sort something out. And if we take anything on, we know with full intention what it's going to cost and how we're going to do it. We can't just say we're going to take something on and then think about how we're going to do it. We need to do it the other way around. And if we don't think we can afford it, or if we're going to pitfalls, we just say, well, no, thank you, we don't want that. But can we defer it until after we've had this meeting? So we'll bring it back to the September full council meeting. Okay?
Can I just ask, is that meeting open to all of us?
No.
All right. It's just that it's my IOP day.
Oh, right.
The 1st of September. All right.
No,
Thank you, yes. I think I've seen one.
Do we have a seconder for that deferral?
I'll second that.
All those in favour? Thank you. Item 13 is Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service Draft Risk Management Plan consultation. Anybody have any views?
As you're well aware, was on holiday last week when the email came round, but having looked at it, the link is like goes to a server, so I don't know how, as a council, we can. Well, I guess I think the only way is that we all make individual responses to it. So, if we try and do a survey by committee, we'll be here till, well, God knows when.
What do people think?
I think it's a very detailed set of documents for sure. I had a whistle through just to see it, and the amount of things you can have fall victim to are just staggering, really. But I like the way it's all set out in terms of prioritising things, all the different towns, boroughs, etc., risk analyse, etc. So I think we'd be hard pushed to find anything to add to it, to be honest. But it's very thorough indeed. I think I agree that there is a survey on that page. So yeah, trying to do a team survey would probably be more challenging.
At least my brief look through it, I haven't found any proposals to not put a cost fire engine. Having said that, maybe the devil may be in the detail.
Well, you have to say that in the survey, what you have to put in the
Okay.
So are we happy that we all, if we want to respond to this, do we want to council response? Yeah, individually then. Okay. Right. Item 14 is Content Council Policy Review. We have an annual review, and I was thinking that could we perhaps agree to defer it, to delegate it to officers, really, unless there's any changes to legislation that mean that what we've got now isn't fit for purpose, like little bits of stuff. I think we can delegate to officers as long as they take it to FES to sort of say this okay. I think these come in every year when they're not going to be changed very much. It just seems a lot of work. What do you think of it?
Can I move that we do delegate it on an annual basis for officers to review all the policies, and if in the event of them finding anything because of legal changes or anything in them that does need changing, and they do need to change the policy, that they then just bring that appropriate policy back to full council to be ratified at the next available full council meeting after the changes is to be made. Other than that, they just roll on year after year with officers reviewing them, because there's no point bringing them back here if there are no changes. They only need to come back if they need changing, because quite often, and David's probably the biggest culprit for this, is they come to FES and the first thing they say is what has been changed in it, and then after a long discussion we decide nothing's been changed, and I think we can save all that wasted time. So I'll move.
Right, that's the proposal that we've had from David. Can I have a second? Brian, thank you. All those in favour, please. Thank you.
Chair, I'll move this lot on block.
On block, David Clark, second, so can we vote that all these 18 that we okay, thank you. Item 15 is the Cole Neighbourhood Plan. We've got draft minutes in your papers. Do you want to add anything, Sarah?
Just very swiftly, I went on a webinar today about liabilities, and Gina texted me because I was tardy with something, get on with it. And so I'm just on this webinar now, and I actually took down what the chap was saying, because he said there were 4 towns that were the sort of landmark towns that they were looking at the new methodology for. Number 1, okay. And he said that using college students can save 20% on labour costs on site. If we have identified the people who want to live in the houses, and we can knock out 7% marketing budget, and of course we can access grants. So it's this kind of cocktail approach that he'll be bringing to the neighbourhood plan. He explains that getting the baseline ready is very, very complicated. But he said that Combe itself and towns like Combe are shaping government thinking currently in terms of viability. I asked a question and said, will the 20% requirement, you need to get 20% for it to be termed as viable, go? He said, no, it doesn't seem to be as easy as that. But he did say, I'm just reading the text that I sent to Gina mid-webinar, he has just said that we show that the system is leading in some places to be a greenfield first policy with brownfield sites blighting our community. He has just summarised by saying this is not sustainable planning. And then he got me all passionate at the end and he said, anything is achievable, you just have to work hard and stay positive. And Gina replied to true. So that's what we're doing now, but obviously because we are the people who are first in that, that's taking longer. It's not something that they've just rolled out again and again. And this Thursday is our little tour around the architectural highlights of Combe with the design team. That was delayed because of COVID. I have a list to work through. I'm late with my homework, but Gina and I have agreed for the non-designated heritage assets. Everything has been done in terms of the addresses. The addresses. There's still some tiny tweaks with regard to the photographs of the long-range view because our photographer came at a time of a lot of traffic by the Shepherds. So that particular shot needs to be taken. There's some similar tiny tweaks to be done on top of the titles in the marketing proposal, but we're nearly there. And Gina has written a very stern email to Michael Bullock to say everything that's not viability, we could be making sure is up to date with the very latest of the NPPF and altering the policies so they're perfect, so that when a viability that we're waiting for, that we can't do anything about, comes in, we're good to go. So in terms of everything that we can do, we have done. I think that's it. If there are any questions.
Questions? Any questions for Sarah? No? No? Thank you. Item 16 is planning. The first one is 21/061/FUL, equity bags. We want to shop and that's all we need to the south elevation. Any problems with it? Any issues? So we need, well, I've got maybe flag in there.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there are any problems with this. In fact, I went down and had a look the other day while we were going past. And I don't think any of this can do anything other than improve that building actually, because it's in a tatty state now. I've just got one comment though about the plant itself, because it shows two views of the outside elevation, and it's calling the view looking from Queen Street on the Queen Street Gable End as the eastern view, which I would call right, but the other view, on the view where it is proposing putting these 6 windows in, it is calling that the south elevation, and I don't think there's any way that could be the south elevation, because you're looking, it's obviously the north elevation of where it's situated. So I think it's sort of cocked up a bit with plans. Well, that's no detriment to what's going to be there at the end of the day, and I think it will look a lot better than it's looked for years.
Yeah, going back, this was marked by Veg. It was then, I forgot his name.
Graham Hart.
Graham Hartley's garage, the bikes have been in there, what, 2, 3, maybe more. And as David says, it can only improve it. And like him, I was wondering how I thought if you think they're putting the extra windows in to catch the morning sun, they're going to be sorely disappointed.
Are we getting no comment?
No, I think we should welcome it
I think we should support it.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, okay. The next one is 21/0583/FUL, Monty Blackburn Limited. It's the land adjacent to White Road Drive, and this is what Sue Hunt was talking about, an objection to. Yes,
When this came, before it was withdrawn, it came to Cone area, so we all got the benefit of seeing the officer's report. I have rarely seen an officer's report with so many objections. There were fully 5 objections, and that doesn't include some of the other ones that I brought on. So I thought that was quite unusual. It will be interesting to see. We went to see the residents on Saturday. Gina, can you shove that whole view up a bit or not? Yeah. So if you see at the bottom there, what's really changed apart from the sequential plan is that the little access road used to come in right next to the houses that are at the extreme left of them. And now there's a sort of bit of respect away, and that's essentially it. So there are still TPO trees that are under threat, and I hadn't fully really until Saturday thought about the various knock-on effects that you might have with White Walls Drive and the roundabout. I went on, let alone the whole Rathbun thing, I went on at tea time just to see whether LCC had put anything in. They haven't. I think that will be really critical, and I know that Ash Sutcliffe has been on to the highways officers about that. There's all kinds of uncertainty in the way that the traffic would flow, the fact that it could only come out and go in one direction, the whole thing to do with the pedestrian crossing, and do people really move like that, or might they just risk running across the dual carriageway? That's a concern. COVID are against this development because they feel that it would make people just bypass COVID. They just go there, get a drink and a sandwich or whatever, and not come and sample the delights, which is not what we want. Of course, as the lady said when she spoke earlier, there are lots and lots of petrol stations, aren't there? There's Asda, there's Sainsbury's, there's the one on Burnley Road. There are loads of petrol stations there. And then when you start thinking about petrol stations, you think, wait a minute, the government's bringing in this legislation 2030 about petrol cars, and now we're just spending all this money building a great big one. And then one of the things that wasn't on the officer's report, but I feel quite strongly, is this what we want for a major gateway into Cone? And I would contend that it's not what we want, because you're coming up the M65 and you see this building and its tower and the flag, and you see the skyline and the way it is, and actually all you've got in front of you at that point is Bannies. It's a perfectly reasonable building, and then you go in towards Cone, you see where it's going, and we've got sort of green fingers either side. What you've got here is just some visual clutter. And so I think visually, that wasn't in the officer's report, but to me, it is a poor entrance into Cone. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what the new officer's report says. It'll be really interesting to see what LCC says, but I hope that Cone Town Council will object to this application.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Howard?
Yeah.
No, I think yeah. Yeah. Well, Sarah's absolutely right, and it's just what everybody else has said. Everything she said there has been said. Personally, it doesn't affect me at all. It probably doesn't affect a lot of people. It certainly affects the people on Greenfield Road, and it affects the nature reserve. And, as Sarah said, the impact in coming into Cone. I don't think we can say really much else here, because nobody wants this. And I think you know, we have to wait until it comes to common area. And there are lots of things to say, and everybody's saying the same thing. The only positive thing that I've read is from a HGV driver who said, you know, there was a certain amount of miles from here to where he could go and fill up with whatever he fills up with. That's the only positive comment that I've seen. So, you know, our comment should be no to this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the whole thing is, a monstrosity. The building on the left there, unit, well, it's either unit 2 or unit B, depending on which bit you read. When you look at the detail plan for that, the people in that block of Greenfield Road will be looking out at a horrible grey industrial building, which is not the place that we ought to be encouraging industrial buildings to be. And I suspect that there will be warehousing type things anyway, just when you read through some of the detail, and it says the number of car parking. The number of car parking spaces are not very many. And then somewhere in the report it talks about how good walking is, and buses and cycling. We're talking of the whole raison d'etre of it is to fill cars up with petrol and diesel, although there are there is a row of electric charging points, so you can go and buy a sandwich in the cross-hatch bit, get your cup of coffee from Starbucks, God help us, and get your car washed all at the same time. This is not the sort of thing, as has been said, that we want as a gateway to the town. And also, some of the backing documents they put in, and I only read them cursorily, but when he's talking about Whitewalls Drive, he says Whitewalls Drive is subject to a 50 miles per hour speed limit. Whitewalls Drive has been a 40 mile an hour speed limit for about 4 years, I think. I think it changed around the time of the last county council election, which could be the reason that there aren't many accidents there now, because the average speed has come down. They also say that the M65 is a motorway, blah, blah, blah. Street lighting and emergency hard shoulders are provided along its length. Yahoo, which bit of it have they been looking at? It says it's maintained by the county council between junctions 10 and 14, which we do know, and they took the lights away. That's at least 4 years ago, if not more. So if this is the sort of report that, and that's just 3 things on it that are bad, I think we should object more strongly. I think we can say the industrial units are in the wrong place. They shouldn't be there. They should be on Whitewalls or Lonisher or somewhere. The entrance and exit, the whole transport, not the county council, which, as Sarah said, at the moment their letters are just sort of holding letters. They haven't finished it. I think United Utilities have also only got at the minute a holding objection, or not an objection, a holding letter in there saying don't approve it or don't turn it down until we've had time to study it properly. It's just the wrong thing in the wrong place. And you know, the report talks about sequential tests and all sorts of things. I think we should just, that's it, wrong place, wrong time. Green, in fact, I'm not sure the residents of Greenfield Road now regret the fact that it isn't full of dirty great potholes, because people can actually drive along it and use it as a ramp, which they will do if this gets to the go ahead. Some bright spark of a HGV driver will look at his sat nav, get along to the hamlet bit of Greenfield Road and find you can't go any further. So we should just check it out. So if somebody moved it, I'll say it.
You're going to move it then? Yeah. Right, you second it.
I'll second it.
Right. So we're again. Yeah. So we're in instead. Yeah. Can we vote on that?
Gina, are you happy with all the reasons?
Yeah, I think.
Are you all on the reasons?
I think we've got them taken.
The one reason that there are too many petrol stations because it's not a planning reason. Unfortunately, the government some years ago, in its wisdom, decided that in those wonderful words, the market will decide. That's the same reason it's difficult to stop takeaways and cafes and this sort of thing because they're saying it's potty and it's down, but them's the rules.
I've read a few comments that I know are not reasons to turn this application down, so, you know, that'll all be sorted at the Colne Area Committee.
Yes, David.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, to be fair, we should list some reasons, really. I know we are only making comments to Colne Area and they will ultimately make the decision. But they will have to make the decision based on planning reasons. And I think it's a fair assumption to say that it would be very difficult to turn it down on anything that the Secretary of State approved and said was okay on the garden centre plan. But one thing that is substantially different between this and the garden centre plan, which the Secretary of State approved, is the access. And I don't think the access is anywhere near good enough or substantial enough. In fact, on the garden centre one, which I think will carry less traffic in and out of it than this would, they insisted on a roundabout being there and having a set of traffic lights there where we all know what's going to happen. Lights change quick, they always do. Whichever junction they're at, you always seem to be coming up to the lights and the lights change. And it's, do you jump the lights, and do you slam your brakes on, and do you stop? And people start jumping those lights when they change, and they go out and just get through and turn around and into there, and there's going to be a bump there not long after it's built. And I think a good reason for refusal would be the access on it, because I think if County Council were insisting on it needing a roundabout for the garden centre, it certainly needs a roundabout, the amount of traffic will be going in there. Because it won't be just a petrol station, it'll end up being known as a motorway services technically. People call in there because it's probably last chance saloon for toilets and everything and all sorts of things when you come up end of the motorway. And a lot of traffic will come up at that roundabout and go in there and out. And I don't think the access to it is substantial enough, and I think it needs to be a roundabout. And I think we ought to pass that comment on tonight, because I think it's a comment that Colne Area would be able to use.
You mentioned the garden centre previously, that was an objection, and that we think it is even more a problem with
it's taking trade away from the town as well, is that planning reasons?
No, that wouldn't be a planning reason, no.
It is.
No, you can't turn things down on what you think might happen.
No, it isn't planning reason. It's the integrity of the town centre.
Sorry.
That's what the sequence.
It's the integrity of the town centre. It's a very, very strong planning reason. Do you remember the time when they wanted to have all those pods in Astor?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have just asked us for it's not just an ordinary filling station, it's going to be massive, so big lorries that can be in 24/7 with screeching brakes and ready up and all that business, isn't it? That's why we saw in favour of the HGV drivers, because you can't go in normal petrol stations with big lorries, but this one we will be able to do. And that's where you'll get a lot of, be a lot of money. Because I think the nearest other one, Blackburn and Bradford, I think you take these massive ones to fill up.
I do think, well, I don't think I know, and we all know, that there'll be plenty of reasons to turn this down. Plenty of reasons that are valid. Yeah. And David's point is a good one as a starter.
Yeah.
No, it's affecting the residents. I mean, that unit A is something like, it's 35,000 square feet. That's rather little.
So there is a full acoustic report, and I think some of the frustration of being a borough councillor is that if an applicant had a specialist report written, the validity of it is not tested. So on that particular acoustic report, there's talk of, well, this lorry is reversing only for a few seconds. I actually think that's more irritating, because I think a total background noise, if somebody was just saying this lorry is reversing all the time for the rest of your life, that would be quite interesting, but you could scream it out. Whereas if you don't know when it's going to hit, you're listening for it and it's worse. I think psychologically it's worse having it only for a few seconds and then stopping. I think, the proximity of those units to those houses and the effect on their lives by the lorry movements will be immense, whatever the acoustic report says. And I wish that there would be another acoustic report that would be truly objective. So I think what we've got is we've got impact on a major gateway into Kent. We've got competition with the town centre. We've got the TPO trees. We've got the operation of the Greenfield Nature Reserve, because the parking and so forth is disrupted, so it can't operate properly. And then you also have to say, with the lighting and the noise, that's bound to affect some of the wildlife, bats, etc. within that nature reserve. Certainly will affect the peace and tranquility of the people who go there. Then we've got the traffic movements, the safety, the crossings, the whole one-way thing, the potential knock-on effects on the North Valley and on the roundabout, and at the end of the motorway, backs up. That's for cleverer people than me. The Environment Agency has put extra conditions on to do with segregations of waters and runoffs, and my goodness, so all of that would have to be included. That's not included in the application as it currently stands. We've got the whole design within the landscape. Is anybody else helping me? I think they probably are. We've got the oversupply of the petrol stations already in that location. We've got the potential finite nature of how long petrol stations are even a thing.
Can I just say that when the first application, this has already had a massive effect on one of the residents on Greenfield Road. When the first application came in, a lady rang me from Cheshire who had a business, and they lived next door to the business. It was actually a gin bar and a pizza area, whatever they call them. And her and her husband had decided to move away from that business. It was just too much living next door to it. And they came here, and the house was up for sale on Greenfield Road, owned by one of the residents on Greenfield Road. So he had 2 houses, his own and one he was selling. And this lady rang me and asked me about this planning application, and she was signing up that day. And I said, you know, yes, that's the planning application, and they backed out, you know, so that had a massive effect on the chap that was selling his house down Greenfield Road. Nobody wanted it, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we've got, not that I haven't heard anybody speak in favour of it.
Put your mark on there.
I've got my mic on.
All right.
Okay, so shall we go on to the next one? The next is the tree one. I think we've already been agreed on those. Are we happy? Yes.
Can I just ask what T1 stands for?
Tree one.
Tree one. Do we know what sort of height that means, or it's just a tree?
It's a tree. They normally say what height they are in the description.
This one's going to be replaced with a 4-inch twig.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anybody have any?
If you look at the decision notice for that, it's grown a little bit because Neil Watson, in his great wisdom, has decided to replace it with a 5-inch twig.
He'll get through that.
Well, we've nothing to say. So that's 3 doors.
Yeah.
Number 5 is the Barfield construction. It's the development at the back of Housing Drive. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can't see anything in this that really has any detriment on the existing planning permission that it's already got, because the number of properties is the same. All they've done is move some of them around. And in the top left-hand corner, they have put in there a electric substation which wasn't on the previous plan. But that's not actually part of this planning application, because most electric substations are put in as a right of them being able to put them there and don't need planning permission. So the only addition to the site is actually the substation, and the number of houses is the same. We've just moved some of them. And I don't think there's any grounds to object on anything to it at all, because it's just the same number of houses, it's the same type of houses, it's the same plot of land, they've just moved 1 or 2 properties around it.
One thing that the county made the point that originally in the northeast corner, which is the top right on that plan, the path actually came down to meet the road, like it does on the west side, and that's gone out. So perhaps we could ask if there's any way that can be worked in. But looking at the plan that came up when I looked at it, the great finger across it, so I can actually see how close the houses are. I think it's worth asking the question, but I don't think we should. If that footpath can be retained in that northeast corner, it would happen.
Anybody, any other comments or issues? We would just have one comment, which if we could, by the way, to have that footpath in that corner reinstated in somewhere on the
West corner. On the left.
Northeast.
Northeast.
Okay.
Northeast or northwest.
Northeast. top of that plan, that was
Okay, that's the only comment we've got, but the next one is, it's, 21/06 41.VAR, that's 40 Red Lane code for variation. Any issue on this? No comment? The next one is Sainsbury's Supermarket 21/065/ABB and advertising signs. Any comments or issues with these?
very nice little other sign that appears back and forth.
No comments? Yeah, no, happy with that.
Don't have any comments as such, Chairman, and I don't have a problem with them putting the signage up there because it's no different to other signage that they've already got there. But what does beg the question is what's going to happen to the existing orders? Is that going to end up being an empty building and an empty store? Can they find something to put in it?
I think it could be click and collect. Stuff like the one in Clitheroe that's similar, but they don't have a store, so I don't know what will happen. Okay, you can't just no comment. And the last one is 21/0639 HHO. It's 11.9 of the code. The River Davis is swimming pool extension. Is everybody happy? No comment? Is it better than the one that was on before?
I still think it's too big a development, Chairman.
One of the plans shows that that's got the existing in red.
That's with existing in there, I think.
The only extra bit is that circular bit.
Which bit? That bit there? That bit?
Yeah. All the extra is that. And we should wear chairs in the middle of it. Or maybe it's round instead of a swimming pool. It begins to start with, I mean, it's not increasing it by much.
Well, no comment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The last one is 21/0667 for HHO. It's two the sidings code. Any issues? Where's the sidings? Is it near Brian?
We're talking that, I'm looking at the old documentation. I opened that it's not called documents. So, where is it? Not there.
It's erection of raised platform in the garden. It's a resubmission.
Is it number 2?
It is.
We did this before, and I never commented on it.
I think all we've done is adjust the platform to
In fact, I had a look at it last week. All right, walking down to the shop.
You want to say anything?
I was going to say that. So
Oh, yeah, sorry. No comment then. Okay. Item 18 is items for future youth agenda. Oh no, it isn't, it's got correspondence received.
No correspondence received yet.
Item 18. Items for future youth agenda.
Chair,
Yes.
it's not really for the agenda, but can I request that the dead baskets are taken down at the community centre this week? Please.
This is Primrose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might not be as soon as I can.
It might what?
It might not be this week.
As soon as I've got staff.
Well, you know what? In the 16 years that I, was involved in Colin Bloom, we never ever had anything hanging about like that for this length of time. So, if somebody can't take them down this week, well, I don't know. I'd go and take them down myself if I could see where I was going.
Is it a staffing issue?
They've got to go.
It's partly yes, because I've got staff on. So
What did she say?
It's got 2 staff off.
I've got 2 staff off, one on annual leave and one it's their day off, and then the watering the other one. And then we're actually interviewing all day Thursday.
It really would not take
As soon as I can get
10 minutes to take them down.
Get 2 staff down there, that's what's
Why
required.
2 staff?
Because you've got to go up a ladder on a hill, and it's what we have to do. As soon as, literally, if I can get a member of staff in early, first thing, I'll go down there at 7 AM myself. But I just need to get the staff
I'll be thinking.
down. Thank you. It'll be raining as well.
Take an umbrella.
I've got 2 issues here that I understood people were wanting to speak about. One is no smoking signs on benches.
No, the bidder, what's we're looking at it.
Or the big that. And stained glass window. You want to
What about it? Oh, yeah.
Well, for another agenda item.
Yeah, we've had permission to have that placed into the glass house on a frame. The frame was the suggestion of the creator of the stained glass window, and have it like the stone on wheels. So if that can happen, we just need to have a frame made and sort some insurance out.
Is this just for the Jubilee, or is it for have it there all the time?
Have it there all the time. I mean, it was ideal when it was hanging up there. It was brilliant, and they had a light behind it, but it apparently got in the way of the Christmas tree, so they asked for it to be removed. We're going to look a bit silly with it's next year when it's displayed, when it was actually made and says the Silver Jubilee. So we need to get it out of the cellar and displayed. That 10 years ago cost us £3,000, and it's beautiful.
Well, we will discuss it next time. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question on that one? I know we can't have a discussion because it's not actually an item on the agenda. Why can it not go in the new room downstairs and be in a proper frame with backlighting behind it and everything, so you can see to its best advantage?
But the thing is, it has got to have, I mean, it was made, and this sounds daft, it was actually made to go in the door of the library. And we had permission for that, and it was measured and made for that. But then I don't know, it was just so complicated. And of course the door is opening all the time. And in the end, we thought, no, this isn't going to work. So that's why we hung it up there. So ideally, it is meant for natural light to flood through it, but the backlight, the artificial light, the backlight would be good, you know.
Well, we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Anything else that anybody wants on the next agenda? Yes, sir.
A bit ago, and I know this is an enormous amount of work, I'm not suggesting you do it just now, but we did talk about, having, as a one-stop shop within our website, a repository of all the groups, you know, all the open doors, open gates, things they do, knit and natter. That would be a great community thing to do as a one-stop shop. So perhaps that's a little project for Nathan in the future.
Is it to the website?
Yes.
I've been involved in something like this before in my working life, and on a website it might work, but if you make a directory, it's how to date the next week. You know, I think it's very concerned over different things that we're doing, and like in Birmingham as well, we're changing every week, it was a waste of money. But I suppose that doing it online, it would be easier to do.
I thought they could do something along those lines, what goes on with income, because they have a directory of everything. I thought they were having that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they were ever planning to, but I'm not sure they were ever planning to do, you know, knit and natter, friendship groups, all of that. I think it's based on business and events and, yeah. I don't know. I think it would be great for us to show sort of community leadership.
Okay, we'll get that on the agenda, and perhaps we can do a bit of research, because there is quite a lot, isn't there? Because, you know, meeting in cafes to, you know, people who go away, etc. Okay. Date and time of next meeting is the 21st of September, Tuesday, 7. That, okay with everyone?
We offer our apologies.
Oh, you're on holiday?
We're off to the Chelsea Flower Show.
Oh, right.